Hello, Ram fans. Welcome to Swollapalooza Thursday. I'm Steve Ivy, your host, I'm really excited. I have a fantastic guest today, and we have. It's not just a great guest. The objective today isn't just to talk about CSU sports, but I have the person that is probably the ultimate arbiter of the meaning of the word litty, and he'll be coming on in a few minutes. And so, our one of our main objectives tonight isn't just to talk CSU sports and to hear your thoughts too through live chat, but to really pin down my guest as to what litty really is. So we're going to do that when we get started. Just to let you know, before we get started, thanks for all your support in this first month. I'm really excited with where the channel's headed. We're starting to do live streams twice a week, Thursday evening and Monday morning. Viewership is up, subscribers are up, everything is good. Thanks for everybody for helping to build this community. We haven't even had a game yet, and I'm excited with the direction and where things are headed. So, the one thing that we did, if you're around on Monday, we debuted a live Monday show with co-host Brady Hall, who I think is probably the leading sports talk guy in obviously in Northern Colorado. I think he's the best in Colorado. We had fun. We did a nice interview with CSU men's basketball player Jalen Crocker Johnson. It's a nice half-hour show, a great way to start the day. People say I'm crazy to do a show on Monday morning, but I don't think a show named Monday Morning Cup of Coffee, something I've been doing for a while with writing and podcasts, it doesn't work on Monday evening or Tuesday evening. So we're going to keep doing it Monday morning. And it was Monday with Brady was the most viewed Monday video I've done. So I was excited about that. I debuted a live post-game show after a Mountain West game, an exhibition game between Utah State and Weber State. I did that with Tom Moser. Tom is, of course, a leading podcaster, does a podcast called Top of the Mountain West, where he covers the entire Mountain West. And we just got the bright idea to do that show out of nowhere. He did a tweet, and I said, hey, you want to come on and do something live? And we did a nice 20-minute show, and it was exciting. To the point where I actually got some feedback from a parent of one of the players at Utah State. So people are starting to watch. It's fun. We're going to build a community. And I talked to Tom about it. We're probably going to do a weekly show once the season kicks off. We'll pick a game to do, a game we think is going to be fun, and we'll do a weekly show. Swollapalooza Thursday continues to be my number one show. I've had nothing but great guests. I started my first live show with Joel and Mike from RamNation.com, Justin Michael from DNVR Rams. I had Tom and another gentleman named Trone Johnson from Aztec Breakdown with a show talking about the rest of the Mountain West. Last week, Ali Farokmanesh, associate head coach. And so I had nothing but great guests, and I've got some really cool stuff in the works as well. I met with somebody who had a great idea. It's something we'll do, and we'll roll out in 2 weeks, and I think it'll knock your socks off. But I'm about to introduce what I think is another great guest. So without further ado, let's bring on Kevin Lytle. Kevin, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Steve?
I am good. Hey, I'm already getting comments. Here we go. Aaron Harris, to quote Tim Miles, get after their asses.
We're allowed to say that here? I like that we don't have to dance around what the phrase is.
Yeah. So, of course, you probably heard Miles once or twice say something like set an effing screen for once too. So
that was the mild version of the things we heard from Tim Miles.
So this whole litty conversation. Oh, by the way, people, please feel free to share live chat any questions you have for Kevin. We'll try and make this as interactive as possible. But Kevin does a lot of radio work in Northern Colorado, as well as writing for the Coloradoan. He appears with Brady Hall regularly, but also with Tanner Schwitt on Good Morning NoCo. And Tanner sent me something and challenged me. He said he's been trying to pin you down on what litty really is. And so he said, that's the number one thing I want you to do. So we're going to spend this entire show trying to pin you down on what litty is. Okay.
All I will say to Tanner is it's like swag. If you need someone to define it for you, it means you don't have it. So
Okay.
if you can't feel the Liddy vibe, you're not in the Liddy vibe. It's pure vibes, Tanner. Come on, man. You've got to know that. It's either Liddy or it's not.
So Taylor thinks this show is Liddy. I'm not sure we're there yet, but
No, Taylor has the vibe. Like, it's gonna get Liddy, I'm sure.
So here, just to give you an example, let's try this, okay? Liddy or not, and I want people to send in. Their Liddy or not questions, or any other questions that Kevin may not have addressed in his mailbag today in his Coloradoan column. But here we go. Liddy or not. Caleb Goody's 85-yard TD versus Air Force.
100% Liddy. I mean, between the one-handed grab and then the fact it seemed pretty conscious for him to never let the left hand touch the ball, and then to do the little peace sign as he scored, Liddy. 100% Liddy.
And the jog the last 20 yards to go with it, too,
Absolutely.
don't you think?
Absolutely.
So yeah, come on, we want to hear if you want to send in questions or whatever, folks, send them in. Here we go. Oh, here we go, Aaron. There you go.
Aaron, you're dialed in. The gold shoes are Liddy. So as a soccer player, I think a lot of people know that. Early in my high school career, I wore gold cleats one year, and I didn't even mean it as like a statement of intent. I was young and naive and bought gold cleats. I was not the guy to be wearing those. I should not have been wearing them, to be very frank.
Were you the water carrier in midfield, not the creative type?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I put in a shift, but I was not. Yeah. I was not the guy who should be in the gold boots, but Jimmy Kaler, absolutely. He can wear the gold boots. That's Liddy. Kevin's gold boots, not Liddy. Jimmy's Liddy.
Jimmy certainly Liddy. I loved him. Hey, speaking of soccer, one of the things people probably don't know is Kevin and I are both tremendous English Premier League fans of the same soccer club. Did you get a chance to watch the Manchester United game against Fenerbahce today?
So it seems like, fortunately, I saw the first half and not the second half, which seems good. It seems like a typical United performance these days. Some good, plenty of bad. Result was kind of a shrug and you're okay, but not the best.
Kevin and I got to know each other, I think, pretty well during the COVID year when we were all covering. We all got to know each other kind of in a weird way during the COVID year covering games at Moby Arena with no people, just people in the press box and players on the floor. And there we were. We really couldn't talk to each other because we were 6 feet apart and we were all wearing masks. And it was like an unsocial event. But there would be Kevin any chance he got if there was a game being played, if a Manchester United game was on, could be streamed, he would be watching and I would be watching it, during halftime or whatever. So we had a lot of fun with that. But I'm not going to make you sing "Glory, Glory, Man United." I'm just going to show the badge. I brought my shirt.
Oh, that's a beautiful kit too.
That was last year's. Yep. I will show you the player. He's played
Steve.
He's played all of 4 games.
He's the Chris Bryant of Man United.
He is very definitely. Oh God. So anyway, let's okay, another Liddy. Jordan Noy's 58-yard field goal versus San Jose State. Liddy or not?
It's close. It's not quite there, I want to say. It was great. I'm not trying to deny it was great, but I'm not sure it hits quite that scale, but it was great. Jordan Noyes is a West Ham fan, I believe, by the way.
What's interesting, there you go. I asked that because I thought that might be your answer. I'm starting to get in tune with what you're all about.
It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe.
It's a vibe. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a little football just for funs. Obviously, you're going to spend more time on basketball. This is more of a basketball channel, But let's talk about the game a little bit this weekend, the homecoming game. What do you see? What do you see for CSU in this game?
It's a huge test. I think if you're a CSU fan, going to Canvas or planning to tune into the game and thinking, oh, this is normal New Mexico that CSU is going to roll over, like, that's wrong. This is a very dangerous team. Devin Dampier, I think, is the best quarterback in the Mountain West. He's super dangerous. I also think it's a great opportunity for CSU. We all know, there's some of the game management issues, things that, CSU fans are concerned of. But the bottom line is CSU is 4-3. They're 2-0 in the Mountain West. They have an incredible gift of a schedule from the Mountain West gods that if CSU can win this game, it will really just continue to send that energy up. I think it's an amazing opportunity for CSU. There's a big if, but if the Rams go and beat New Mexico and then beat Nevada next week, I think we're looking at a 40,000 crowd for the Wyoming game after the bye. So it's a huge opportunity for CSU, but a very dangerous game.
Aaron points out this isn't your grandma's New Mexico team. I
True.
think that's what you're trying to say, isn't
Yep.
it?
Devin Dampier is incredible. I mean, I hate projecting a G5 star to leave, but if that guy is starting for New Mexico next year, then the Lobos have done some incredible work in the NIL and recruiting world.
I'm with you on that, and it's really interesting because, the guy at, I can't remember, his name escapes me right now. The guy who was at UNLV last year that ended up leaving. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Dampier.
No, Dampier's way better for sure.
So, here we go. Aaron wants to know, Steve Adazio talking to refs, litty or not litty?
I have some story. I'm not sure I can share those stories right now. Yeah, let's some form of litty. Yeah, I'm gonna mostly plead the fifth on that one.
Here we go. Aaron's all over it. He's having fun. Which city is more litty? Litty cities.
To me, that's easy. Albuquerque. I enjoy the Albuquerque trip a lot. You get great food. It's really pretty. I know there's some not great places, but it's a great trip. Reno to me, meh. I can pass on it every year.
You talked about CSU building momentum. One of the things I wanted to bring up with you was, that you talked about the gods being kind to CSU in terms of a Mountain West schedule. Here they are sitting at 4-3. The next 5 games are against first-year coaches, 3 of whom have been signed to contracts and 2 of whom are interim. And, you hear all this talk in college football. It takes a few years to get a program up and running. Norvell in his 3rd year, and he's got up against nothing but first-year coaches. What are your thoughts on that? Is it? Are we looking at Norvell really having to win pretty much most of those games and almost running the table to really impress with what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, this is a schedule. I mean, I've written this. I've said it. I don't think 6-6 is good enough this year. You have such a scheduling gift because no Boise State, no UNLV, like you said, facing a ton of first-year coaches. CSU needs to win some games. Now, I'm not saying it's a Mountain West title game or bust, but if you were to lose to a first-year Bronco Mendenhall, a first-year Jeff Choate, a interim Tim Skipper, those would be not great signs. So, yeah, I absolutely think CSU has to take advantage of this and stack some Mountain West wins. I mean, I think 7-5 is almost the minimum you need to get to if you're this CSU team, because it is an incredible gift in scheduling that CSU has been handed. It's like going into the year, like in the summer, I think we all thought, and it was, somewhat a favorable schedule. And then the way it's played out, it's even more than expected. So CSU has to take advantage. I mean, year 3, when you're in this kind of transfer portal, quick turnover era, year 3 now is what maybe year 4 or 5 used to be. This should be your program as a coach.
I know that I'm not one of these. I'm not one of these people that's Norvell out. Well, Lord knows I follow enough soccer, and they're always looking to toss a manager out, even when they're doing well. But do you think 7-5 cuts it for Jay?
Yeah, I mean, so this is the weird thing with the schedule. The good side of a somewhat soft Mountain West schedule is it gives CSU a great chance at a lot of wins. The bad side is almost any game, if CSU were to lose it, could be a pretty negative point. If you lose to New Mexico, it's like, well, it's a first-year coach. If you lose to Nevada, especially, that's the program Norvell left, and they're on their second coach since Norvell left. That would be a negative. Wyoming is bad. So, Utah State is in some form of chaos. So yeah, I think if you don't stack some wins, there are a lot of question marks for sure. And that, I don't think that's a harsh negative view. I think it's just the reality of college sports right now, especially as CSU heads toward the Pac-12. Like, this administration is aggressive. That's not, everyone can look at it and understand that.
Yeah, I mean, the question is 7-5 good enough? And I don't know. I'm not the president. I'm not the athletic director, but I think they're going to be questions asked.
Be Air Force in Wyoming. That's a good place to start.
That is very important. So anyway, hey, here we go. Here's Taylor. Another 7-game home slate next year. Is that Liddy?
Yeah, so it's an interesting move. CSU basically canceled the game at Vanderbilt, added a home game against Washington State, which obviously is a future Pac-12 foe. Supremely selfishly, I wish I were going to Broadway Street, but that's okay. It's not about me. I think business-wise, I'm working on getting the contract, so I'll see exactly what the financials look like, but it makes a lot of sense. I think the 7 home games, that'll be a pretty attractive home slate, even without CU and even without Wyoming. I can totally see why John Weber and co would be interested in that. So yeah, that has a chance to be another pretty big season. CSU is probably going to get its third sellout of the year this weekend, and they'll look for it next year to keep having big home crowds. This new admin is very, very big on making home games at CSU a big event.
Yeah, it's I have some friends that love to travel, and I think they were so excited about going to Nashville to see that game, and I think they're kind of disappointed. But I think in the end, to get a good home opponent, that's really, really a real positive, and obviously a 7-game schedule is a positive as well. Yep. Taylor with a Fresno feels like the only acceptable loss. I don't think it's an acceptable loss. I don't think any of them are acceptable. I think Fresno's a decent program. We know that, but again,
I get Taylor's point though. I mean, it's the one that on the schedule, if CSU were to lose, it's not an immediate catastrophe.
And then my buddy Jake
Jacob, don't worry, Jacob, we'll get there.
The football talk is ruining my evening. So let's we can transition now. But before here's the deal, and I wanted to talk to you about this because we're about to talk basketball, but here's Kevin Lytle working his butt off covering football, and it's a pretty regular thing. And here we get basketball trying to, about to kickstart into a season. We have our first exhibition game next week. How do you find any balance in your life with this stuff going on?
Yeah, so this for myself and a lot of folks, it's not just me, some of CSU's content crew and stuff, we call it crossover season, which obviously the name kind of explains itself. Seasons molding into the others, and it's busy for sure. Football on its own it's a busy beat. I mean, wherever your allegiances lie, the reality is, I mean, we have, readership numbers. Football is the big dog, even when CSU is bad. So it's a busy time of year, but basketball now starting. Obviously, we have a lot of fall sports still finishing. Volleyball, soccer are chasing Mountain West titles. There's a lot going on. I would say it's busy, but it's good. I mean, I'm very blessed. I have a very cool, fun job. I get to do a lot of good things. Yes, the late October into November period is very busy. And if you look at CSU basketball's opening slate, the first games for both the men's and women's are that Monday, November 4th or whatever that is. That's a football bye week. Normally you would think of a bye week as somewhat calmer for me. That will not be calmer because it's a start basketball season. So it's just a lot of juggling of things. But if there's one thing I feel like I'm good at, it's time management and scheduling out what and where I need to be. So that's a lot of what I'm doing right now. Sort of day to day where I need to be. And then longer term, I have a sort of staggered schedule of like, hey, here are the football stories I need to do leading into this week's game and then maybe in the next week's game. And then likewise with basketball, I have my series of stories I plan. Right now it's that I'm planning between now and the opening game. So it's it's busy, but fun, if that's makes sense and is fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time out, even though you're busy, but to do this. I'm so excited that I could get you on here. But so, what does a typical day look like for you? Do you start at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, or are you going pretty much nonstop?
Yeah. So again, depends a little bit on the season. So football practices in morning. So most days I'm on and working by like a 7 to 8 a.m. depending on the day. And yeah, I usually work through kind of the evening, depending on the day and week. And it depends a bit too if it's a travel week. Like when CSU's home, I have a little bit more flexibility because I don't have to, spend hours, driving to DIA and hopping on a plane and all that. Whereas if it's a road game, like next week, I'll go to Reno. That's going to get really busy because Friday I'll travel to Reno, Saturday kind of spend all day covering a college football game. Sunday travel back, and then Monday is the start, the first games of basketball season. So within all that, I'll be, balancing basketball writing with football. Basketball tends to be more a afternoon and night type of season. So come that season, my mornings free up a little bit, but my nights get a little, busier. So yeah, it's just a juggle, but like I say, I'm pretty good at balancing my time. And fortunately as well, my bosses kind of trust me of like, hey, as long as you're getting your work done, we don't care when or how or whatever, as long as it gets done. So I have some flexibility, but yeah, it gets busy, but it's fun.
So obviously working, whatever. Aaron had a question earlier. When's the wedding date? You got engaged. What's going on with that? Because you got a life outside of CSU Athletics as well.
Believe it or not, I do have a life outside of answering people's tweets, which I'm trying to get better at. But yeah, getting married next July, which very excited about. I have an amazing fiance who actually works at CSU. She's at a CSU event right now, which is probably, to be honest, helps free me up this evening. But yeah, next July I'll be getting married. But yeah, very, very supportive fiance who's really great at helping me balance work and life and support me in my job, which admittedly is kind of a weird, funky hours type of job, but she's an amazing support system.
I think we're all excited for you. Hey, before we move totally into basketball, I got a litty or not litty. Here you go. Travis Hunter's interception against CSU.
That was pretty litty. I mean, that was a play. Like the dude is really good. I know want to be careful here with CSU fans watching this. Travis Hunter is an amazing player. He's I'm a Heisman voter, and I am watching very carefully what he's doing, what Ashton Genty's doing. Travis Hunter's incredible. That was a great play.
I agree with you 100%. I saw that, and it was like, when was the last time you saw a defensive? That was a well-thrown ball by Fowler Nicolosi.
He's incredible.
That was the right place to throw it, high and away from the DB. And somehow he lunged, caught it at the top of his jump, and hit the ground running full speed the other direction. That might have been the best football play I've ever seen live in my life. I think, and I've been on record telling people, I've seen a lot of college football over my years. I'm an old man. I think he's the best college football player I've ever seen. I've seen Heisman Trophy winners. I've seen All-Americans. I think he's the real deal, and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, Aaron says his wife says it's not close. Ashton Genty is far better. I'm not going to disagree that Ashton Genty is a great player.
Incredible too.
He is a great player, but
I'm very intrigued for Friday night.
But Travis Hunter is, and definitely that play was litty. So
yeah.
Anyway, let's talk basketball. What do you have you had a chance to catch any practices?
Yeah, it's
What do
been
you,
awesome. I've been out to, I don't know, 4 or 5, had some really good conversations with some coaches as well as some of the players. It's always a good program to be around. It's funny because I know you've been out there, Steve. Like, we all knew this was a transition year as far as big turnover on the roster. And we all knew, 9 new scholarship players, 10 total. But man, when you go out to practice, it just jumps out at you. I mean, the no Isaiah Stevens jumps out at you. All the new guys jumps out at you, not in a bad or anything way. It's just so different.
yeah.
So it's super fascinating. I am incredibly intrigued by this men's basketball team. I think it's going to be a fascinating year. Obviously, we all are going to miss watching Isaiah Stevens play because he's just one of the best. But it's going to be fascinating. I'm really excited about this year.
Yeah. So what do you see? What do you think from your perspective, your 3 big storylines?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that jumps out, and so a funny little backstory. Joe Palmer obviously was on the team the last 2 years, fan favorite. I play in this, old man softball league in Fort Collins. And, about a month ago we're playing, and I'm coming in from the field after a half inning and someone yells out, "Kevin." And, I didn't even really think about it. Turn around. It's Joe Palmer. So we play against him. I beat him, by the way. Like, I don't want to say I'm a better athlete than Joe Palmer, but my team has won back-to-back championships and his didn't. So
You're saying you beat him like a drum, right?
Yeah, I mean, take that for whatever it's worth. But we were talking, and he had been kind of this summer and early this fall working with the team. And he said, and then I saw in person, it's a bigger, longer, stronger team than last year. Now, that doesn't mean better. I'm not saying better, but they certainly have a lot of athletic tools. So I think that's one of the things that jumps out. Is like, okay, you have pieces, you have a lot of different things you can do. How's it all going to fit together? Your 2 veterans, so to speak, are Nick Clifford and Jalen Lake, both very good players in their own right, but they're also both pretty kind of quiet leaders, more lead by example type guys. So who's going to step up in the, kind of more forceful leadership role? I think an Ethan Morton is big in that. I think Bone Bourne is big in that. So that's one of the things of just like how these new pieces fit together. Another one is kind of in the same vein. When these players transfer in, we all look at their bio and what they've done, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do this year for CSU. Ethan Morton, I think, is the best example. The guy was kind of your defensive stopper at Purdue. Everything ran through Zach Edey because, of course, it should. But he, I know we'll talk about this a little later, but I'm writing about Ethan right now. He feels like he's kind of been painted into a box, and he thinks he can be a little different player than most people think he is. So how players fit in CSU's system is going to be fascinating. We saw that with Nick Clifford last year. He was an okay player at CU, but not great. He found a system that fit him perfectly, and he flourished, and I think he's going to flourish even more this year. So I'm intrigued to see who is the guy this year that kind of has that. And then, I think it's the obvious cliche one, but what's life after Isaiah Stevens like? It's Isaiah has run that system for so long. What's it going to be like without him? Everyone has known it's coming. Everyone, understands it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a smooth, easy transition. So I just think it's going to be very fun to see. And in a way, it's a new fun test for Nico Medved and his staff to kind of mold a new group of Rams.
So, the talking about Isaiah, I don't know if you saw the thing from Eric Spoelstra, the coach of the Miami Heat, talking about Isaiah, where he referred to his classic point guard, just the old school point guard. And, he didn't get, he ended up getting cut by the Miami Heat. I've been in touch with Isaiah the last day or so. He is going to end up playing in the, I'm trying to get him on as soon as possible. His schedule is just so weird, but he is going to be heading to, Sioux Falls, South Dakota to play in the G League for the Heat team.
So it's obviously I think Isaiah's gonna have a lot of chances. He's a guy that every coach is gonna love, but Just culturally, how different is that going from Miami to Sioux Falls?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Of
Not
course, the
not that
first,
Isaiah's worried about it. That dude is all ball, but that's a
yeah.
different lifestyle.
I'm sure he just wants to start playing and wants to start winning. But of course, the first thing I tried to figure out was how long a road trip is it to Sioux Falls, and it's about a 10-hour drive. So,
It's a haul,
but
especially when
it's
it
a
starts snowing.
it's a long, long way. But I have to figure out a way to get there somehow. Um, here you go. A little comment. I'll bet Joe Palmer transitions into a hell of a slow pitch player.
All right.
Joe is in.
Can I give my Joe Palmer's slow pitch softball scouting report?
Sure.
So he's a decent stick. He's a line drive hitter. And, he's a decent athlete. He can move around. But I told Joe, so there's one point where he was playing left field. I was on second base. There was a single out to left, and I stopped at third. I didn't realize there's Joe out there until later. I told him, I was like, man, if I'd known it was you, I would have run. Like, I don't think you can throw me out home. So Joe is fine, but he doesn't have back-to-back slow pitch softball championships.
Where Joe's playing, I believe, in Serbia right now. The last time I saw him was a few weeks ago at a practice, and he told me he thought he was heading to Australia. And then a week later, I read that he's in Serbia. Yeah. You want to talk about a funny business, this whole international basketball stuff. I ran into JD Page at a practice this week.
Yeah, he was there recently. Yeah.
And JD, I said, JD, what's up? He goes, well, I'm just waiting to find out where I'm playing next. I've been in such and such and such and such. And I said, this sounds like the portal. He goes, it's worse than the portal. They call, you got to go in a day. Yeah. Anyways, so we're going to try and get in touch with Joe. I want to go back to this question. Has Medved transitioned from a developed talent internally coach to a transfer first coach? What do you think?
No, I think it's a hybrid. I think it has to be a hybrid these days. I mean, if you want to be only high school recruiting and developing, unless you're maybe Duke and can get all the 5 stars, you're done for. And if you want to be only transfers, certainly at CSU, I don't think that works either. So I think it's a hybrid. I mean, if you look at this year's team, look at your best players. So Nick Clifford, he's obviously a transfer guy that they found that, they felt fit them better than where he was. That's important. But they're also going to lean heavily on, a Kyan Evans, a Jalen Lake, who's a recruit and develop guy, a Rashawn Bimba, kind of a, far reach recruiting guy. Kyle Jorgensen's a high school guy. It is, I think, has to be both. I think CSU is not a place that can recruit at a high enough level to lean on only high school guys, but I also don't think they're at a level that they can only do portal. So I think it's a hybrid, and I think that's where they need to be.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. The funny thing is, if you look at the team that's been most successful in the Mountain West, the San Diego State, and everybody talks about, well, they get a lot of great transfers, but you look at the core of that team, and the core of that team has been built around preps.
Yep.
Staying there for 3-4 years. They just lost Lamont Butler after 4 years. They had Keyshawn Johnson for 4 years. Those are both rock solid players that helped lead them to that championship game. And so I think you do have to strike a balance of both. And
if I can also say, I think both can be part of kind of the question there of develop talent internally. I think you can do that with transfers too. I mean, I think Nick Clifford's a good example of that. He's a transfer, but I don't think anyone would argue that, Nick has developed a lot in his time at CSU. So I think, even with transfers, you develop them within the program. That's where CSU needs to live. I think it has to be both. I don't think that's a program that can live with one, but not the other.
Here's a question from Jacob. What happened to Javante Johnson? And is that possible for any of the transfers this year? What do you think?
Yeah, so Javante is at Cal Baptist, I believe. He's a guy, basically just was beat out for time last year. There were other players that were better. And yeah, I do think that's possible. You have a lot of guys on this year's team that have can make a claim right now for potential time, but there are only so many minutes to go around. I don't really know or have anyone kind of pegged as I'm not sure they're going to play, but not everyone's going to play. So yeah, I mean, that's just the nature when you only, college basketball, you only play so many guys. So they're only going to be that 9 to 10 that play a lot.
All right, Aaron, with who will be our transfer that emerges as a star this year? Who do you think?
I mean, I think Morton is a top candidate for that. Jalen Crocker-Johnson's probably going to be a starter. So, he's a pretty good candidate. I think Bourne will be a useful guy off the bench as a scoring guy. But Ethan, I think, is the one that maybe is not getting the attention from fans just because of the role he was in at Purdue, or maybe lack of a role is the better term. I think there's been some, I don't want to be mean, but some misinformation from CSU fans about some guys. But I think Crocker-Johnson is both a developmental guy, but also an important guy this year. But I think Ethan Morton, if CSU is going to be very good this year, I think they need Ethan Morton to be very good this year.
I actually think both of them are going to have pretty big impacts. Morton, I think, is going to grow over the season. I've seen enough in practice to lead me to believe he's a good player, and everything I heard. Nico told me some things about the game against Washington State, and he said Morton did some really, really good things. And I think as he gets more playing time and gets more comfortable with the system and his teammates, I think we're going to see him emerge. And then from an overall physical perspective, I think Crocker-Johnson is going to develop into something as well. He's a really good athlete.
Yeah,
and
Croc to me is a guy that, this year is important for sure, but he's also for the future guy too that could become really, really good.
Here we go. How do you expect the scrimmage to be run tomorrow? Are you going to go tomorrow?
Yeah, so I have to admit I can't make it tomorrow. I have a wedding I have to go to, so I won't be there, but I'll be around next week for the exhibition stuff. I would assume it will look like the previous homecoming scrimmages CSU has done, where they inter-squad scrimmage. They'll probably do a little bit of the, expected 5 against a backup 5, and then they'll mix up some different rotations and matchups and stuff. Probably I would assume probably some short quarters, 8 to 10 minute quarter type things, where you get a lot of different lineups and stuff together in a pseudo game setting, but somewhat informal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think they'll mix and match more than they play. It won't be a specific white team against the green team. I think you're going to see some mixing and matching, and I think they'll go have some fun. Here you go. Here's a good one from the CSU meet, exceed, or fail to meet their preseason ranking. Preseason, we're seeing them ranked about roughly 6th in the Mountain West and about 75th nationally. What do you think?
Yeah, so in the Mountain West poll, CSU was 7th. I vote in that. I put CSU 5th. I think anywhere in there is understandable. And to be honest, I know I'm a voter in one of these, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think preseason polls are stupid this day and age, because there's so much offseason turnover, and especially in basketball, I mean, 2 new players, good or bad, can totally change the scope of a season, and we just don't know. I mean, we can't see what every team is doing or what they look like, so I think they're frankly just educated guesswork at very best. But yeah, I think right now, if I had to pin it down, I think CSU is going to be pretty good. I did a very rough, very casual record guesstimate, and I had CSU with about 20 wins. Obviously, some of that depends on who you beat. I think CSU is a postseason team of sorts. I'm not ready to say they're an NCAA tournament team, but I also don't think it's impossible. So if that answers the question, I think CSU will be pretty good, but I'm not ready to say CSU will be great.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm with you. There's some possibilities for this team, but one of the things that that's really hard to predict is how healthy is a team going to be to start the season. And you look what happened at San Diego State, announcing that Reese Waters is going to be out for the entire non-conference schedule. And that's going to affect San Diego State. We remember what CSU went through without Isaiah Stevens missing the first 7 or 8 games. He's going to miss easily. He's going to miss the first, I think, the whole non-conference and be lucky to get back for the and, CSU's been banged up. The bigs have been banged up a little bit. Every team's going through this kind of stuff. So it's really, really hard to see exactly how things are gonna play out. But I think we're going to see a solid team that will develop over the course of the year. One thing Nico mentioned to me, which had me laughing, but even he knows this. He said, the team I start on November 4th may not be the team I start in my first conference game against New Mexico. He doesn't know. They think there's a lot can change.
Steve, I'm sure you feel the same. I feel like this is a cliche, but I think it's very true with this team. I think there's a very good chance that the team in February is a lot different than the team on November 4th.
Yeah, this is one year where I think I really think that it's going to be crazy different. So yeah. So that's good. You covered your thoughts on CSU. Hey, I thought this question was a great transition question. If you weren't a sports journalist, what beat would you cover for the Colorado, and what are your other interests?
God, I don't know. I mean, I have so many talented colleagues. We're a small, I'm biased obviously, but I think we're a very small but mighty newsroom. We have so many people who are so much more talented than I am in our room that I'm, frankly, in awe of a lot of times. I couldn't do city council and dig through their nonsense. I mean, we have folks doing politics, especially right now, obviously with an election coming up, going through all the political stuff and sifting out, fact from fiction, and folks that do courts, every now and then, obviously I have to do some courts reporting. Not fun, not easy. It's complicated. If I were not a sports reporter, I'm not sure I could cut it at the Colorado. And other than maybe I could do some of the back end digital work. I feel like I'm pretty good at that. But as far as like actual beat reporting, I'm not sure I could cut it where any of my colleagues are. I'm in awe of them a lot of times.
You know who I really enjoy is, and I know him a little bit away from just in general, is Miles. I love the work Miles does.
I appreciate his enthusiasm for learning new things. It can be any topic and he will just throw himself in and learn about it. Whereas I don't always have, I like my things and I'll go really hard into things I'm covering, but I'm not always great at taking a new topic and learning it. And he's great at it.
Yeah, I agree. So what you got coming? What you got cooking the next few days?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So I had a great conversation with Ethan Morton a little bit ago, like 10 or so days. I'm finally getting down to writing that. I wrote most of that story today, so I should have that online within the next 3 or 4 days. He's a great kid. Fans are gonna. I think you can probably attest to this, Steve. Fans are gonna love Ethan Morton. So I have a number of things. I'm doing interviews with to go to the women's basketball side. I'm sitting down with Emma and Hannah Ronsick, the sister duo for the women's team. And I think you guys know I try and be pretty level-headed on expectations. Emma Ronsick's going to be really good. She's going to be a star. So I'm excited to talk to them. It's a kind of unique set of circumstances that's led Emma to CSU. So of that. And for the men's team, I'm going to have a bunch of preview stuff, kind of looking at some of the things we've talked about here about what to know about the team. And then I'm going to go straight through the roster and kind of define the expected roles for every player. Because, again, like I say, I don't mean this meanly, but I think there's been a little bit of misinformation from CSU fans on expectations for some certain players, and just want to be clear on what to expect going into the season. And obviously I'll be covering, I'll be at the exhibition next week, the doubleheader opener on November, whatever that is, 4th, I keep saying. So I hope that's right. So yeah, just a bevy of basketball content coming in the next week and a half, in addition to normal football coverage as well.
the you're talking about Emma. I I was shocked when I saw she was coming here. She's a hell of a player.
So I'd had some little birdies that had told me that may well be coming, and so I've been prepared. But yeah, it's one of those. You look at her resume, and even though I had been told very very strong sourcing that she was going to be coming, but you look at her resume, and even with that sourcing, I was like, I need to see it because
Yeah.
she's really good. I mean, I don't mean this mainly to CSU. She is one of the best transfers in CSU sports history. I mean that across all sports. There are only one or two that I can pick out that are better. Shade Lawrence in track was an NCAA champion when she came to CSU, so that would probably be above it. There's no football player that has a better resume than what Emma's done that transferred to CSU. I don't think there's a men's basketball player transfer that has her resume. It's big time.
Yeah, I saw, she was like one of the leading scorers. She played for Creighton. They smoked UNLV, who, basically waltzed through the Mountain West, and she tattooed UNLV.
I think Emma should be player of the year. I voted, again, preseason polls, hands up, they're nonsense. I voted Emma preseason player of the year because I don't think anyone matches what she's done.
Here you go. Aaron's here's your number one transfer from Aaron. Marcus Houston.
Had a bit of a resume, not Emma's.
Yeah. Oh, so well, cool. That's awesome. Hey, I got one more before we wrap. Here you go. Neeks Clifford dunk versus CSU last season. Litty or not Litty?
Definitely Litty. I think that was a very cathartic moment for Neek personally. It was definitely fun for the Moby Arena crowd. There were a lot of great moments for the Moby crowd last year. That was one of the better ones. And how intriguing is CSU going to Boulder this year going to be? I mean, if Neek were to lead the Rams to a win in that game, oh boy, that would be fascinating.
I've talked a little bit with Neek about that off the record. And it's very interesting, some of the comments he gets from CU fans regarding his presence at CSU. He puts up with a lot.
Are you telling me people on Twitter are being wild? That's crazy.
They keep receipts.
I've heard that. Neek has always been quite kind of polite in discussions about CU, but I think he's also made it very clear that he thinks CSU has been a much better fit for him. And I'd be very intrigued to see what he would say if he were to go to Boulder and beat the Buffs, especially now. That team last year, I think he really wanted to be respectful. He had a lot of friends on that team, to be very honest.
Absolutely.
Like he was friends with a lot of those guys. He doesn't really know any of the guys on this year's team. So if he were to beat them in the last game he plays against them, I think he might be a little bit more open on his thoughts on his time in Boulder compared to his time in Fort Collins. But either way, that game should be super fun.
Yeah, I agree. That moment last year, the reason I brought it up, I thought that was as litty as it got in an entire season of awesome. Great plays. Yeah. Probably the loudest noise since the Octius dunk against San Diego State, which was
it was up there.
2013. But the fun part was I was sitting with our good friend Brady Hull. Brady sat with me. My wife didn't go to the game, and I turned to Brady. I said, wouldn't it be poetic justice if Neek had a big dunk at the end of the game to put this game away? So we were coming out of our chairs when we saw that happen, and it was something. So
that was a special moment.
We don't quite have the I haven't been able to quite get it out of you a pure definition of litty, but I think we've got a good understanding.
It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe. There's no exact description. Tanner, like I say, if you can't feel litty, you don't know litty.
Yeah. So the other thing, I was talking to my wife about this. I have a daughter, and way back in she was born in 1987. So in 2002, she was 15 years old, and there was a movie that came out called A Walk to Remember. And there's a line in that movie, and of course, it brings a tear to all teenage girls. The line at the very end when the character, the male lead, is talking about his girlfriend or his wife, who he married at 18 and she died because she had leukemia, a real tearjerker. But he was talking about love is like the wind. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And I think that's what you're saying with Liddy. It's just another way of saying
Exactly. Like I say, if you don't know, then it's not Liddy.
And before anybody hammers me, have a teenage daughter and try not to watch A Walk to Remember.
No, you're clear there. No problem there.
Anyway, well, thanks. You got anything else you want to add, or are you ready to wrap?
Yeah, man, I'm just super excited for the both basketball seasons, men's and women's. I think, like I say, on the men's side specifically, I'm being arrogant here, but I would love people to read content, see what's coming, because I think it's a very fascinating team. But it's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, I agree, and I look forward. Hey, Kevin, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Just one of my many line of great guests for Thursday night for Swollapalooza Thursday. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for everybody participating in the live chat. We'll see you on Monday morning with Monday Morning Cup of Coffee. Kevin, see you later with the fight song. Go Rams.
Glory, glory, Man United.
There you go. See you, bud.
See you guys.